All right, good evening and welcome everybody to the Village of Webberville Council meeting. Today is February 10th, 2026. We'll get started here with a call to order.
McEwen?
Here.
Shelburne? Here. Stanfield? Here. Walter? Here. Schulte?
Here. Quorum. Everybody please stand for the pledge.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Is there approval for the agenda this evening?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, first, we've got a public hearing this evening. This is for the zoning definition update. Just a quick recap. This is to define what a data center is and to restrict the usage of those to our certain zoning districts. So at this time, recommend to the council that we open the public hearing for zoning definitions at 6:01.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, we'll move into public comment for the zoning definition portion just for this public hearing. Do we have any comments from the public regarding this topic? Seeing none, so we will close public comment, 6:02.
We can have to read that letter
Oh,
into
yes.
the record.
Thank you. We did receive an email from the potential future resident that wished to provide a comment, brief. This person and their spouse say that they reserved a plot of land in the village of Webberville in order to build a new home. However, if the data center is planned to be built in the area, we will let the plot of land go and build elsewhere. They go on to say essentially things about maybe some false promises, some of the issues with infrastructure impacts and how those can negatively impact populations in the region. And hope that the village of Webberville sincerely prevents data centers from being built or practicing in the Webberville area. That is the essence of comment. So I recommend that we close the public hearing at 6:03.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that brings us to our regular public comment for anything else. We'll open that up at 6:03. Any public comment this evening? See none, so we will close public comment. Comments from the president. I know one of the questions about data centers is whether or not there's any plans for one, and I can surely say there are no plans. There's no immediate anything on the horizon. So we're just strictly trying to get ahead of anyone if they were to try to come here. So that concludes my comments. On to the consent agenda, which includes the minutes and council meetings from council minutes from January 26th, the special council meeting from January 29th, accounts payable investment report, revenue expenditure report, balance sheet. Any questions or discussion from the council on those items? If not, I recommend that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second. Roll call.
McEwen?
Yes.
Shelburne?
Yes.
Stanfield?
Yes.
Walter? Schulte?
Yes. Okay, it brings us to reports. First up is the police report.
26th of last month, that we responded to one.
Can you speak up, please?
On the 26th of last month, deputies responded to the 100 block of West Green River domestic. Three individuals were arguing over politics. The female victim attempted to separate her boyfriend and the suspect. The other male half involved in the argument when she pushed her phone to fell to the ground. The suspect agreed to leave residence at the sheriff's withholding law for the evening. Deputy Allen submitted the report to the prosecutor's office for review. Pretty quiet month overall, no issues other than that, and the stats are set.
Thank you. Any questions for our deputy and council?
Thank you for everything that you are doing.
Thank you. DPW report.
Month of January was pretty tough. Plowing and salting's been what feels like been nonstop. Snow events pretty much every other day that we had to deal with. I know everybody has heard in the news and the media, so we were prioritizing our salt usage based on weather forecasts and traffic needs. We've had some equipment breakdowns. Our plow truck has been in and out of the shop and been struggling to keep it going, but we're in the home stretch now, I do believe. And then just a reminder, this cold weather, seal up your crawl spaces. If you have any drafts or anything like that under your house, your pipes can and will freeze. We've had a few here in town that did freeze. So just seal them up, look for any drafts, and keep it warm down there. So that's all I really have.
I seen the old plow truck was hauling snow out from downtown. Is that functional as a plow still?
When you put the plow down, start pushing snow with it, the transmission starts slipping.
Okay.
So I was trying not to burn that transmission out.
Gotcha. Fair.
Yep.
I saw on Elm and Walnut.
Yep.
That it was out of service there.
The
There
fire
was-
hydrant?
yeah, the fire
Yes,
hydrant.
the fire hydrant's broke. The new one is actually sitting at the DPW right now.
Okay.
We're just kind of waiting for the weather to break.
Understandable.
So, yeah. As soon as we have good weather, that will be replaced.
Okay, coming soon.
Yep.
Thank you.
Surprised you didn't mention the good news.
As you've seen in the accounts payables, our vac truck is functional. We don't know for how long. They found a hydraulic shop that was able to machine some parts for the pumps. And then we installed a valve to bypass one of the pumps if we don't need the maximum hydraulic flow on it, to try to take some of the strain off the pumps. So it's functional. I'm not gonna push it because we don't know how long it's gonna last, but we do have our truck back, so we'll see.
Right.
That's a bonus.
Yep. Any other questions for Ryan, council? All right, the clerk treasurer report.
As a reminder, the monthly newsletters can be found on the village website now. We do have a few copies downstairs if anyone wants paper copies. Caitlin, Julie, and I have begun meeting weekly via Teams so that we can begin working on the final budget amendments and the 2026-2027 budgets for this coming fiscal year. The master plan has been officially updated to the state, and we will begin working on the next steps to become a redevelopment-ready community. Becoming an RRC community means we are being proactive instead of reactive, attract investment without losing control, and compete for funding while protecting public interest.
Thank you, Jessica. Any questions on the clerk treasurer report? So we will move on to the WDDA report. Josh, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, the 4 buildings coming along. We are, now that everything is funded for that, we are full steam ahead, waiting for some weather to break to put like the rooftop units on and to get the patio done. And then we're also looking, Bruce is involved with this, which is to get Summit Street done and that parking lot as well. And then we are now moving on to getting some ideas of what to do with the Briggs building, and obviously looking for community input of what the Briggs building can be, but we want to move right on to that to get that functional and not looking terrible around there. They are going to board up the front of the Briggs building, at least that French doors that have basically are very terribly pinned. to stay closed, but we're gonna have that all boarded up. And, you know, and again, as we move to figure out what to do with that building, we're just gonna try to make it look as nice as possible for the time being.
Any questions about WDDA? We'll move on to building and zoning report. McKenna's provided that as per usual. NISA report.
We haven't actually had a meeting yet, our meeting until Thursday night, so nothing to report this month so
Okay,
far.
excellent. Attorney reports.
The revised easement, revised from a license to an easement, along with a memo I've drafted, sent off to KJET and KJET's attorney, expressing why I'm of the opinion that an easement is the type of instrument that we need as opposed to a license. If you want to pass them down so you guys can see what I sent out. With this, it kind of got me thinking too. I was hoping to use it as a piece to push KJET in the direction we want them to go. I reached out to the municipal insurance for our property premises liability to see what they preferred on these types of situations. And in the policy, it only really spoke about real property owned by the village or leased property. But it sounds like if we can get an easement, that should not be a problem at all as far as getting coverage for it. I'm hoping to divulge that information to KJ with a phone call if they call me here soon about it. Still suggesting that the easement, I'm still of the opinion that the easement provides the best protection for the village and protection to KJ, because the rights of that property would be well defined within the easement. So checked on White Rose, still no update from the Court of Appeals. I placed a phone call with Bob Baldori, the last known attorney for White Rose, waiting for him to give me an update. His last known, Mr. Rittman, was going to try and gain compliance sooner rather than later. That's all I have really to report today.
Thank you, Scott. Any questions from the council on Scott's report? Brings us to engineer reports. Bruce.
Yeah, so I've been working on getting the bid documents around for the Summit Street and parking lot improvements. And I'm planning on advertising that on the 24th for the bid due date of March 17th. So that should get us under the wire to get a bid from Reed Riley, who's doing the Main Street work, you know, to see if we can get some preferable pricing from him, you know, because he's already gonna be in town. Be kind of a shame to have two different contractors do that, but we wanted to get that out in time to do that, so that is gonna happen. And we did finally get a drainage approval letter by the drain commissioner for that parking lot, which has been years in the coming. And that kind of broke free from a log jam when they fixed the sewer, the storm sewer along Michigan Avenue, and that was kind of the holdup before. That's all been repaired, so everybody knows where that drainage is going, and they were able to issue that approval letter. So those two items.
Excellent. Any questions for Bruce? Thank you, Bruce. Any advocate reports? Just see none. So that brings us to new business. Item number 1 is zoning definitions. I was hoping McKenna would be here, but apparently not. So Chris did provide some updates in our packets this evening. So can go through exactly the language that's being proposed to be added, as Chris or Jacob typically would do. So under the general provisions, what's being proposed is a definition of a data center of principal use of land where the facility structure or portion thereof is used primarily for the housing of computer servers, telecommunications equipment, data storage systems, or cryptocurrency mining operations. It's also a definition for data center as an accessory use which is a facility meeting the definition of data center, but located and operated so as the subservient and accessory to the another land use occupying the same parcel. In no case shall a data center with a project energy usage greater than 20 megawatts be considered accessory, even if it otherwise meets this definition. So that's definitionally what's being proposed. In terms of zoning districts, data centers of a principal use would be by special permit use only in the M1. There he is. I'll let you get settled in. So I just read out the proposed definition of a principal use and accessory use data center.
Thank you. Yes, that's one big change since the previous discussion on this issue is to distinguish between those two items. One of the unusual things from a land use perspective about data centers is that they exist on such a huge spectrum of scale and capacity, which makes them difficult to zone and leads to the distinction that we've proposed in this ordinance between accessory, something that exists within another use to support its technological functions, its communications functions, et cetera, and something that is a principal use where the primary use of the land is those servers. There's also an energy use cutoff at 5 megawatts that is automatically considered principal, even if there's no use on the site, just because of the sheer scale. So that distinguishes between something that is simply permitted as an accessory use and something that has a fairly substantial and stringent approval process, as well as a relatively limited area in the village where it would be allowed, right, which is in the industrial district, special use permit. And then the other aspect of the ordinance is the water system piece. But there's the water system, the noise, the landscaping, but the water system piece is probably the one that is biggest to discuss. And we did try to pitch it such that there would be wiggle room in terms of capacity. We didn't want it to be that, okay, the existing village customers plus the data center, as long as we can serve that, we're good. We need it over and above, right? Which is where you see the 125, 150% thing to try to make sure there is that additional capacity in the system, even with the new very large user that hypothetically would be added. I can talk about the noise and landscaping pieces as well, but those are a little simpler. And those will be part of any review of any particular data center that came in. And I apologize for my tardiness.
No apologies needed. Just one minor correction in the definition. I believe megawatt is capital M, not W, or not lowercase m. Otherwise it'd be milliwatt.
That's a good catch.
Sorry.
Good catch.
The engineer in me's coming out. I guess I have a question about the 20 megawatt because I have, as a layperson, conceptually have no idea what that entails. What is proposed in this draft is that accessory use data centers would be permitted essentially in all zoning districts, which at face value worries me, but I also don't know if that's something to be worried about at that scale.
Yeah, and we could talk about where the exact scale is, where we draw that line. I actually think it's important to make sure that we are not accidentally prohibiting, the types of servers that exist all around us in every business in many homes, and Josh's business, right? We don't want to. That is not the intent here, right? So we want to make sure that we are clearly distinguishing those, but exactly where we draw that line, aside from principal and accessory, because I think that in most cases, accessory is easy. I'm an office, and I have a little data center. It's in a closet. No one ever notices it. If our computers work, we don't think about it, right? Okay, fine. But if I have a really, really big office and I have a really, really big closet with a bunch of servers in it, how big does that have to be before it starts becoming an issue? Before I start having to cool it in ways that need more water and that kind of thing? That's where we're trying to draw that line.
I'm working on a data center project in Allen Park right now, and that's a 25 megawatt facility. And it's pretty big. It takes up probably 8 acres. You know, it's got multiple chillers and generators and that kind of thing, just to, you know, give a reference as to how big a 25 megawatt.
It's big.
That's pretty big.
So we can reduce that number if that would make everyone more comfortable.
Yeah,
We didn't want to, I was intentionally trying to avoid capturing, just for instance, Evolve, and wanted to have something that was internal to them, what was internal to their operation, and I want to make sure that some of our larger businesses weren't caught up in the net, but.
Can you define it by the need for external equipment or something along those lines?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the primary concern is really the village's water system, right? If suddenly an existing business needed far more water, and it's like, whoa, what's going on? Oh, we took a quarter of our square footage and put in a bunch of servers for whatever reason. It's internal to our operation, but like, there's a lot of it. I don't know, this is hypothetical, but
I mean,
that's where we want to make sure that we're covered.
would it maybe make a little bit more sense if it was a special use permit across the board?
I think we need some level at which you fly below the radar. I mean, again, we got a
So, I mean,
IT
for-
consultant sitting right here, and I don't think we wouldn't want you to be a special use permit downtown.
I mean, for a household or a small business, I mean, those are, a whole home generator is typically no bigger than like 25 or 30 kilowatts, not even in the scale of megawatts. So I would imagine that if you were even approaching a megawatt of energy usage, you're talking about an industrial facility at that point.
I think the thing to look at too is it would be maybe a little bit more, might have to be actual table for the next meeting, is find out what the current capacity of the, for instance, business park is with wattage from DD and what they actually currently can actually do out there. And then, as he said, is the water restriction, I think, is one of the biggest hot topic of the scenario of data centers. Is if we don't have enough water to deal with it, then it should be a moot point. And I like the idea of doing it. It's not what is the current capacity, but what is the capacity if, for instance, Webberville grows out, that the capacity needs to be above and beyond what the current is, not just up to. Because you don't want to having a data center come in and say, hey, we see you have, this is just random numbers, but we see you have 30% left in your capacity of water. We meet that definition to get to 100%. I think you should be above and beyond what you guys are currently doing, which is, no, we want that 30% for current expansion for residential and commercial. You have to actually make our system that much more. And I think that's what you're pretty much proposing, right?
Yeah, the specific, refresh my memory on the exact numbers we put in here, but it was, it's written as 125% of the daily water usage of all existing village customers averaged over the preceding 12 months. So you average the daily water usage for the existing village and add 25%, plus 150% of the anticipated daily water usage of the data center as reported by the applicant. So that's how it's written right now. I think there may be opportunities if you want to put more headroom in there, then that's an option as well.
So it would be 150% more water usage above the village, 125%?
That they'd be,
Is that what you're saying?
yes, the data center would be required to pay for the infrastructure necessary to get the water capacity up to that level.
Okay.
Or if that was gonna be impossible, or they refused, then you would deny it.
Yeah.
For violating this provision.
Yeah, so they would have to improve our infrastructure, not just beyond their anticipated usage, but
For some anticipated growth in the rest of it.
Yeah.
And the 150% is both to accommodate that and also just to be a check on their self-reporting. Oh yeah, it's gonna be, well, okay, give us 150% of that, just to make sure, you know.
Yep. Yeah, I think for principal use, the definition makes sense, and certainly the restrictions on water make sense to me. I mean, we can talk about the noise and the landscaping. I don't think those are bad provisions to include. I think where I'm a little bit hung up is the accessory use portion, because you're correct. I don't think this board would want to limit existing businesses that are here or prevent, say, a small business that, you know, would have something that would arguably defined as a data center, like an IT closet. I just don't know what's drafted addresses that appropriately.
We can absolutely talk about that. I mean, we could cut that megawatt standard all the way down to 1 megawatt or even less if you wanted to try to make sure that we're not accidentally missing something that's big enough to make an impact.
I was gonna say, can you lower that down to 8 or 10 megawatts? And then anything above that requires a special use permit.
Absolutely. And we can lower that for sure. I know there are some ordinances that could break at 5, between something that requires special use permit and something that doesn't. So I'd be comfortable with that. As I said, I'd be comfortable going down to 1. And I'm also willing to discuss other breakpoints, other ways to designate what's allowable and what's not. We could even do it by district. I just didn't want to get too complicated, but it could be that in the industrial district, anything under 5 megawatts, anything on every other district, everything under 1, or simply say, you know, that, well, principal use data centers are already prohibited in other districts, so that's not.
Do we talk to Leroy Township to see how they're handling it so we can kind of be joint?
Can we talk to the Leroy Township
Yeah.
person? Chris, you?
So Leroy will discuss in this planning commission meeting next week, Wednesday. They have a more, they're not quite as far along as you, this will be their first discussion, but the first draft that we put together for them is more comprehensive because they are a rural community. And because they don't have the industrial parks in the village, right? That would be an appropriate place for an appropriately sized data center with appropriate infrastructure, right? There's a lot of appropriates, but it would be like it's a reasonable spot. In Leroy, if you wanted to go out, you know, down by like Howell Road or something, they need strong protections against someone coming in and wanting to do that. So they're gonna have a little more robust, more detailed ordinance than you guys are. But one thing that is going to be overlap between you, or we're anticipating that we're going to recommend is overlap, is actually water provision. So which go regardless of whichever community, because either one of you is probably going to be on Webberville water, and so that water provision we're going to recommend is adopted in both ordinances in the same language. So there's, no matter what happens, because in the event that one of these comes in, it's not unlikely that it will be, there'll be a 425, discussion because of where one would likely show up. And then we're talking about water extensions and all that. So it's gonna be the same system. The only way that wouldn't happen is if it was in the far northwest corner of the township and they wanted Williamston infrastructure instead. But even that would fly in the face of the township master plan, so I don't think that's likely. It would never get that far. They would deny it.
I know they were trying to do one in Fowlerville, and it was in the middle of nowhere, on a fairly big chunk of country ground.
Exactly, and that's what Leroy's concerned about. That's the concern they have to worry about that you don't.
I mean, I understand there's a business park, but they're also trying to put them in the middle of the field.
And, no, we've absolutely seen that, and I'll just, as a land use planner, I have significant concerns about that. It's my opinion, these things should never be built on wells. And I know they're working on different systems to reduce the water usage, but that, it just seems like an insufficient infrastructure. Very short-sighted, and not the thing the community should support.
Isn't the one down in Chelsea like that?
The one near Celine, I believe is, yes, and I have significant concerns about that.
Yeah,
And that was the result of a court case.
right.
And so one thing that's very important is that communities get out ahead of this, adopt an ordinance, and have clear rules, so you don't end up in a situation like that, where you're being ordered to approve something that you have significant reservations about. I know there's one in the South Lyon area that went in, this is some McKenna clients, so some insight into it, that went in as a permitted use. So there's no special use permit, but it had all the infrastructure. There was sufficient water infrastructure and all of that ready to go. So there are moments where these things can work, and there's moments where it's like, that is deeply inappropriate, and you're just gonna try to stand against it. So anyway, Leroy's gonna have that conversation next week. I think they are probably gonna say anything built in Leroy Township is gonna have to connect to water and sewer, which probably means a 425 agreement, which means same village water rules really should apply either way.
Josh, do you have a professional opinion to
Yeah,
add?
what I'd add to it is just, I think what you guys are going down is a good line. I've seen this from a lot of different communities around Michigan, because there's a push for Michigan to obviously, adopt these AI centers. And I think it's prudent to put something on the books faster and then amend it later of more restrictions. Because as soon as you guys define a data center, and I've been telling multiple municipalities this, as soon as you guys define it in your zoning, it actually helps you guys in general. Because right now it's a data center would be considered a warehouse.
Yep.
I mean, Chris would probably,
I would have the concern, I suspect Scott would share that concern.
yeah,
That if it's not well defined, or it's not defined, it's not defined at all, then someone is going to say either you are illegally excluding it and order you to allow it, like Celine Township, or no, actually it fits under this use and I can just do it because I'm a warehouse.
Right.
And so you don't want either of those outcomes. You want to have it clearly defined. You want rules around it. But like I said, you guys are in a position where you're fortunate that you have an area where it's not a horribly out of bounds idea for one of these to go, and you don't have to write pages and pages of regulations to discourage them from going in all sorts of inappropriate places like Leroy does. You simply say, we want it in the industrial district, these are the rules. And then if someone shows up, they show up. If they don't, they don't.
I think the restrictions he's placing puts guardrails on, protect the, taxpayers and the residents here. And I mean, if you guys down the road want to change or make it, changes, adoptions or whatever, I think it's a good thing. But I think right now it'd be important to get this through, because right now you guys don't have any interest, which would kind of, without it would help define what you guys want. Yeah.
It's a funny use, because if you took a similarly sized actual warehouse, it would have a lot more truck traffic and other offsite impacts that this data center would not have, but it wouldn't have the water usage issues. So it's very different sort of set of things to evaluate.
So if we do what Mike suggested and drop that down to like 8 or something, then we could possibly change that, make it higher if something happened.
You wouldn't want to do that in the face of, so say you made it 8, and someone came in and they were 7.9, and you were like, we want to do a special use permit, and you quickly approved something to drop it to 7, I expect that would not.
Yeah.
Be something you would be happy
Yeah.
with. So I wouldn't want to do, I would worry about that. What you could, but I wouldn't worry about going the other way. So if you dropped it to 1 and someone was at 1.2 and they were clearly accessory and you're like, I really hate the fact we had to drag you through this special use process. You know, why don't you just hold tight, we'll amend the ordinance to 1.5 and you guys can move forward, right? Like you could do, I would, you know, that kind of thing is probably doable. Going the other direction of like trying to change the ordinance quickly to get someone into a special use process, that's out of bounds. I guess the upshot of that is maybe you want to set it, maybe you want to do the opposite of what our thought process was when we drafted it and set it low with the idea that you may increase it in the future rather than the other way around.
Yeah, that's what I meant by setting it low and increasing it, not going the other way.
Yeah, so in layman terms, you're saying put high guardrails up, and then you guys can always bring them down if there's someone that, you know, makes it work.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you have high guardrails.
I still feel like if you're talking megawatts, that's still a huge,
It's still big.
that's still big. I mean, that's 1,000 kilowatts.
Yeah.
So compare that to the average home, which is what, 20, 25 kilowatts?
It's basically the entire village, or, you know.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, you're gonna take so much power as the entire village. And that's fair, and the other thing you can do is get off the energy thing and start talking about percentage of the square footage of the business, or just
Well,
square footage overall, or something like that, that's a little bit more of a
I
tangible standard.
I like Bruce's idea, if you can tie it to water usage specifically. You know, if this is a system that requires auxiliary liquid cooling beyond a certain gallons per day or gallon per month basis, that it would require its own separate metered service. So that way it's more traceable and trackable. And then you could restrict the, you know, if it's an accessory use, like, you know, you want to rent out the back 1,000 square feet of your office building as a data center, and it's going to require, you know, 10,000 gallons of water per day for cooling, you know, is that the trigger point for, that's no longer an accessory use, that's, you know, commercial use, primary use.
It may make sense to simply say, if you need a system like that at all, then we're gonna trigger the special use permit, because the average one in the closet doesn't require that, it's an air conditioner.
Right.
So,
That's where I would actually come into play, is you guys might want a secondary thing of just water use.
Yeah.
Because technology is getting better, and a lot of the, water's been a hot topic issue with a lot of people, of saying that's gonna cause a water issue. But most of the, like, and I have extensive knowledge of data centers, because we use them, is a lot of them in Michigan don't use water, they have closed loop system that's geothermal. And if you have that system, then you don't really need, the water is not as big of an issue. So I would probably put another guardrail out there of, again, megawatts. I think the biggest thing would be to figure out what DTE can actually currently provide to the village, and, you know, especially in the business park, of what their limitation is, and then try to make your guys' guardrail up to that, because otherwise the problem you're gonna have is you guys are making a decision, and if they have to bring more power here, it's not gonna be down to easements, it's gonna be from A to B. So the closest area to get high voltage lines is gonna be cross, which is gonna affect other people outside of the village. Because if it says, say they are gonna put a big data center in Webberville, and they have to get power from like Jackson, they're gonna go across so many people's properties to get there. They're not gonna go around, they're gonna go straight through. And so then your guys' decisions are affecting other property owners, you know, to that extent. So I think a megawatts limitation would probably be a good advisory on that. So that you guys actually do have guardrails up for even not just Webberville, but surrounding areas.
that's a good point.
We don't even want to talk about these high voltage lines that are trying to come around here right now.
You really just want to get everybody riled up.
I'm just saying, that's already got a bunch of people wound up, so.
Rightfully so.
And that one's not subject to local zoning. So.
So
it's its own issue.
if I understood what you're saying correctly, Josh, are you saying increase or decrease the electrical component.
I would decrease the electrical component, because you guys can always get special use and actually like redefine it or change it, depending if there's someone that comes in.
I mean,
While putting up a higher guardrail on it will deter people from even trying to start that conversation.
oh, are you saying even for primary use? For a principal use data center?
Like just
I think we need to double guard ourselves with the kilowatts and the water.
Because I mean, the grand scheme of things, it's that, don't get me wrong with this, Chris, but you correct me if I'm wrong, but people can still come to you if they want more, or they want to go outside of it with special use, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think,
And then the village council has rights to say yes or no to it.
as long as we write it that way, but so as written right now, if the data center is the principal use of the property, it requires special use permit and only goes in industrial period.
Right.
Regardless of the size of it.
Yeah.
Which the working assumption is that even if someone wanted to say, I don't know, but buy a house in the village and just fill it with servers, you still don't want that.
Yeah.
Like, well, even though it may not take a ton of water or energy, you just don't want that to happen, so we're gonna say you can't do that. But if it's accessory, then it's fine as long as it's below a certain level. I really like actually the suggestion of anything that requires that auxiliary liquid cooling, period. That's a special use permit, because that by definition is gonna be big enough that's necessary. I also think that, it does seem like the technology on that is rapidly improving, and if you guys do get one, they might have a closed loop system that doesn't need much water. In that case, they'll pass the water test with flying colors, right? Because they'll be able to say like, oh, 150% of our daily usage is like that much, right? So we're good to go. So that would be fine.
I mean,
So there's the matter of where and how much you want to set the energy threshold at. Certainly anything where
so we-
upgraded infrastructure is required, which should require a special use permit, but that's probably a very large threshold.
with the energy threshold, if we say an accessory use can't exceed 100 kilowatts, assuming that that's large residential or small business, and we say a principal use can't exceed 5 megawatts, does that mean if somebody wanted to come to Webberville with a 10 megawatt site, that it's just not permitted?
So I actually would defer that question to Mr. Gould, because I've wondered about whether that is something that's legally in bounds, to have that hard cap on energy.
Because you're not disallowing it, but the community is saying, look, we'll allow it, but it's gotta be of a modest size, or an appropriate size for the community, right?
Well, kind of like we were mentioned before, it's definitely easier to, in this situation, amend up to accommodate somebody that is gonna draw more power, to welcome someone into the community, to allow them to build, to try and reduce that number, reduce energy, to try and exclude somebody from the community. That's where I think the courts they look at it a little suspicious, like you're intentionally amending things down to keep somebody out.
Right.
But is the question that you're posing is, if we set a number, say it's 5 megawatts, are you asking me if it would cause alarm to the courts if we allowed for a greater capacity infrastructure?
No, I was saying if we set it at 5.
Yep.
But somebody was dead set, we wanna have 10 megawatts. Would they have legal recourse to say, you're being overly restrictive by saying,
I don't believe so, no.
I mean, my layperson view of the law is it's kind of no different than setting the maximum height on a building, right? You say, oh, we want to build a 10-story, parking garage. Well, we have height restrictions, right? Well, I want to build a 10 megawatt data. Well, we have power constraint, thing.
Yeah.
We're not saying you can't be here, but you have to follow these rules.
And I would agree with that, especially if Mr. Gould's comfortable with that. I would agree. I would encourage housing density, right? You could build this number of apartments, not that number of apartments. We're not saying you build 0 apartments, we're saying you could build 20, not 50, right? So same idea, building height, lot coverage, you put it all in the same bucket. I do know that there is, I think there's a case out there, certainly controversy out there about putting a cap on the height of wind turbines. And that being, and the argument being, well, we can't generate energy at 200 feet. We have to have 700 feet. And then that being seen differently, but I think again, if Mr. Gould's comfortable with it, I'm comfortable with it, because I can see a situation where someone comes in and says, I want 10 megawatts. You say, our ordinance says 5 megawatts, and they go, okay, fine, 5 megawatts. And then we're fine, right? Because they reduce the size and then they go build a second 5 megawatts somewhere else. So that would be, so I mean, I would be comfortable with that if that's what the board, if the council wants to do.
Does that make sense? I mean, if you set it below where we think it would create a modest, non-nuisance situation if somebody wanted to do that. As time goes on, if that threshold needs raised, it's a lot easier to do that if need be.
I think setting that low.
Yep.
Makes sense.
I would start there.
So 100 kilowatts for accessory use. And that's what, like the power usage of 4 residential homes?
I think that seems fair to me. 100, you can't go over 100 kilowatts as accessory, can't go over 5 megawatts, period, end of story. That's fair.
How much does industrial usually use?
So there are some out there that are talking about 100 megawatts,
Yeah,
which is nuts.
yeah.
But I also don't think that there is any land in or close enough to village to be 425 that you could even build something that big. And so I don't know that that's something you should realistically.
Which again, I think you guys can amend this as, I think probably wouldn't be a bad idea to have a conversation with DT of, even from my own standpoint from DA, building up business park for the second phase of what is our current max? Like how much power do we currently have available to that area so that we can actually kind of curtail that as well? Because I know I get that question a lot when prospective people looking to build, they always ask what our, they usually ask water, and then they ask what our, how much electric do we have available?
483 phase underground out there right now.
Yeah,
There's one.
483 phase, 480 volt, 3 phase. It's all underground.
I would actually be comfortable with a requirement in here that it is not permissible to build a data center that would require enough energy to require upgrades to the infrastructure serving the village.
I think that's a good way to be.
If we're talking about, hey, we'd have to run a new high tension power line from somewhere else.
Yeah,
That's a automatic no.
Yeah.
Like,
Especially
you must
with
keep your energy, kind of like the water thing, except that you guys have some capability to take a check and do the engineering and upgrade the water system. If we're starting to talk about something that is bigger and more regional and is involving, one of the big energy companies or something, DTE and ITC and everybody, that's so far beyond your purview that I'd feel comfortable saying like, look, we're not getting into that.
Yeah.
If that's required, if you need to do that, like, you are too big for our village.
well, especially with the business park, because business park has all their lines are underground, which makes obviously for aesthetics look better.
Well,
Yeah.
there's also another layer of protection here too, which is for any lands that are outside the village, the current village boundary that would potentially be 425, is then there's the discussion of, well, how would that zoning district look for that 425 agreement? And I think there's certainly an argument to be made, which is that we currently try to restrict M1 industrial to the business park. So there could be, I think, grounds to deny certain zoning districts based on village master plan.
Absolutely.
That would fall to Leroy Township then.
Not if it was a 425.
Would actually probably help when you're hopefully your township, if they say, so that they have to have a 425 agreement with Webberville.
Yeah.
To provide water, so that would actually help the township, that if you want a data center in Leroy Township, you have to connect to Village Webberville. And then it goes on your guys' restrictions.
Yep.
So then it actually helps them as well. I mean, it's a mutual beneficiary thing.
In the hypothetical where one is proposed north of Aldi, the first thing to come before you would be a 425, the second thing before you would be a rezoning. And you'd be able to evaluate both of those on their individual merit before you even get into the specifics of things like water usage.
Right.
So, something about.
Do we even want to, well, we do want to, but do we want to move on to noise and landscaping? I think,
Sure.
unless the council wants to discuss further the power requirements and the water requirements,
No, I think we're good with
I
what we
think
decided on.
it's, Chris, as long as you're clear on what we've discussed here tonight, are you able to
Yeah.
compile that for future adoption?
Absolutely. Yeah, either for adoption, in the future, or, even if you were to vote to adopt it tonight, we can make these changes, that's up to you. I can recap here quickly. So we would, that where it says 20 megawatts as the line between accessory and principal, we reduce that to 100 kilowatts. We would note that anything requires auxiliary liquid cooling must obtain a special use permit regardless of anything else, so that's also a threshold. And also that any auxiliary liquid cooling would have to be metered separately from the rest of the use. And a couple of hard rules: shall not cause electric infrastructure serving the village to have to be upgraded. I think we're going to work on that language because it would be the regional infrastructure serving the village as a whole, not the underground lines in the business park that might have to be rerouted or something like that. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the energy capacity of the village as a whole is too low. That would be a hard no. And then finally, a 5 megawatt hard cap period for all data centers. You shall not exceed that. If you are proposing that, you're either denied or you're going to alter your proposal to reduce to 5 megawatts. So those are the changes. And from there, I can talk about the noise and the landscaping as drafted. The noise is actually modeled on what you guys do for odor at the marijuana grows. So for odor at the marijuana grows, your ordinance currently reads that they must come up with a system to mitigate the odor, and then they present it to you in detail, at which point that is adopted as a condition of their approval. And if they fail to maintain that system or it's not working as described in there, then they're in violation of the zoning ordinance. Basically they write their own ticket, but they can also be like hoisted on their own petard, right? If they make claims they can't follow up on, we can enforce. Similarly, we would have a system like that for noise. Show us how you are doing noise mitigation with the design of this building. And then if there's noise that you said wasn't gonna be there because of your mitigation, you're in violation. Now, we could do something with decibel standards, and we do have a noise ordinance that specifically goes to decibels, but I do wanna make sure that this is something that works no matter where one of these things is located. Because in some cases, noise is gonna be a bigger issue than others, just because there's other noisy things like I-96, or there aren't because it's not near there.
My opinion is there ought to be a decibel factor in there, because at least with the odor issue, that's a very subjective thing, whereas this is something we can make very objective. Where if it's a certain decibel reading, a certain distance off of the property line, I don't know, is it 85 decibels, 100 yards off any property line, something to that effect?
So you currently have an 80 decibel limit for all industrial uses as measured by the property. That's on the books already. And we could do a cross-reference to that, so that it's clear that that is what applies.
I like that. And this is probably maybe separate from this potential adoption, but I think there ought to be extraordinarily punitive fines associated with violating that.
Okay. But to look into your current fee schedule for fines, they're not extraordinarily punitive right now.
Well, I'm just looking at this is, if somebody wants to design a system that's gonna create 100 decibel noise at the property line and the fine is $100 a day, somebody at that scale is just gonna freaking pay it. And then we have to deal with
That's a good point.
them just doing it anyway.
Scott, is there a limit, if we were to say something like, hey, this is the 80 decibel limit, it applies to everybody, but for you, data centers, the fines are 10 times what they'd be for somebody else? Is that something that would fly, or is that a problem?
I feel like it'd be a problem. I'd have to do a little homework on that one, but
I mean, the other thing I suppose we could do is just increase the fines for noise violations specifically.
well, yeah, that's what, a lot of times I see progressive penalty. So if it's, your first violation is $50. And then as you go up, you ratchet up $100 every time, there's an additional fine.
Double daily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and every day is a violation too, so. And so the penalty would be specific to this industry, just the data centers.
I mean, maybe that probably is a bad idea, but maybe it's industrial noise violations under a fee schedule or something.
Yeah, that
Or
would
a
be,
fine schedule.
that'd probably be the best way to go. And keep in mind too, if you set a penalty fee schedule for the entire industrial park, and it's progressive, civil infraction tickets are issued, you can dismiss, you can withdraw so if they come to you and say, hey, we're sorry, we really screwed up, it would be in the purview of the city, the village to say, okay, we'll dismiss this one. If you come back again, we're gonna enforce it. So, I mean, because ultimately you just want compliance. I mean, you really don't even want the money from the penalty because it really doesn't justify, well, I guess depending on how high the penalty is, of course, but compliance is usually the name of the game.
Yep.
So, Scott, we use section 10.99. Is that our current fine schedule? It says $500.
When was, Jesse, do you recall when the last time the online codes have been updated?
Every time we get a new update, we send it to them. I don't think we've updated fee schedules in a while.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't recall ever touching those in recent years.
Yeah, the zoning ordinance just refers to ordinance 10.99. Ordinance 10.99 says it says not more than $500 or 90 days imprisonment.
Well, that's a misdemeanor, right? That's a misdemeanor?
Yeah, it is. That's why I'm wondering if there's a civil infraction one.
So generally speaking, so the way, as I recall, our ordinance is written is that unless we designate a penalty to be a civil infraction, it's then presumed to be a misdemeanor. That's pretty common across municipalities. If you just want the civil infraction, we just have to put in code that it's a civil infraction.
Sorry, I heard illegal.
Yeah, again,
Yeah. Claiming I'm not authorized to look at the ordinances.
and I will say, civil infractions probably work better probably in situations where you're dealing with industry. Criminal, a misdemeanor, usually works better for individuals, and the reason being is that you really just want compliance. And so there's a fear of jail, the $500 fine, where civil infractions, it's truly a civil action and where there's equitable powers that can come through it. So if we did have to pursue a corporation through a civil infraction, it would be handled much like a civil court, like we just filed a lawsuit against them for noise violations or a nuisance. So
I think if we're talking about adjusting the fee schedule, I think that's probably downstream of adopting anything here tonight, and something that we can noodle on and amend. I mean, the fact that there's no presently proposed projects, I think affords us time to look at the fee schedule portion, whereas I think this is more pertinent just to defining and shaping first part of it. Probably. Well, yes, we would. I'll let Chris finish fighting with American Legal Publishing.
No, yeah, so you do have some things that are designated as civil infractions right now, like a junk violation.
Yep.
Is designated as civil infraction. This may be something we want to clean up a little bit overall, is just to make sure that it's clear that zoning violations are civil infractions, and then have a more clear fine schedule.
I mean,
I have it in my head that we find written $150, but I don't see where it says $150. But that's a totally separate issue, it's not.
Yeah. That could have been prior to whatever the current fee schedule is too.
That's true.
Well, I, generally speaking, whenever I see $500 fine, 90 days jail, that's the definition usually of a misdemeanor. So, but Jay Rittman, we only hit him with a civil infraction.
Yeah, I thought that too, and we should, yes, I think this is maybe something the council should take up separately, is
Yeah.
Yeah.
set a series of fines, and we could set that industrial noise one as its own violation with its own schedule.
Most certainly, yep.
So I think, I forget when the date of our next meeting is, but do we set the public hearing for not next meeting, but the meeting after? That gives us a chance to have a discussion at our next meeting, and Chris, does that give you enough time to draft a proposal?
First meeting in March.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, are you talking about incorporating the changes tonight plus the civil infractions?
Well, I'm
section,
thinking
or-
incorporate these changes tonight, and then 2 meetings from now, address the fee schedule.
Got it, yeah,
Not just fixing it in general, but adding a industrial section to that.
the industrial noise.
Yeah.
I think so, you have this section in the zoning ordinance, 153, 199, the dead last section of the ordinance. And all it does is reference your current ordinance 10.99, which is the one that makes everything a misdemeanor.
Right.
So I think our recommendation would be to replace this section with a more robust description of a civil infraction process.
Yeah.
Saying, in violation of zoning ordinance or civil infraction, you're going to issue the ticket, every day is a new violation, and here's the day-by-day fee schedule, and if it's an industrial noise violation, it's doubled. Something of that nature.
So March 10th would be the meeting after next.
Yes.
Does that work for you, Chris?
Yeah, that's fine.
So the noise can be figured out. Landscaping,
So landscaping, the really important landscaping here is the screening, which is along the property lines adjacent to any residential or agricultural zoning. And the proposal is that those would be double the requirement that applies to really anything else. So a principal use data center would have a double landscaping requirement, so that's double the number of trees, double the number of shrubs. So that that's a noise mitigation thing, it's an aesthetic thing. It just separates it from whatever's around it. That doubling provision would not apply to street frontage landscaping or parking lot landscaping, because those are not, the purpose of those is less about trying to mitigate negative impacts on neighbors and more just about general aesthetics for the village and the business. So it would just be that screening requirement that would have to upgrade that we needed. And it is worth noting that screening requirement is not required if you are industrial on industrial or industrial on commercial. It's only when you're industrial on residential, and it does apply again up against like the township's agricultural district, that counts as residential as well. So it may be a cornfield now, but we still have to screen against it in case houses are built there someday.
I think that makes sense. So it's been a lot of discussion, a lot of changes on the fly. Any questions, things we want to add? Keeping in mind that we can always come back to this later as we think of more things, but it's rather important to get something on the books as soon as realistically possible.
Agreed.
At the risk of annoying Chris and burdening his voice, do we want to hear the run through one more time of what we've discussed just for posterity and clarity? Or are we comfortable?
I think I'm comfortable with it.
I'm good.
Okay. So I would recommend that we approve the zoning definition of data centers as amended by McKenna.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
McEwen,
Yes.
Schoenberg,
Yes.
Stanfield,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Yes. All right. Thank you, everybody. I know this stuff can be a little painful and a little dry, but it's excruciatingly important.
Yes, we'll be glad you had this, well, maybe not, but hopefully someday we'll be glad to say this.
Well, hopefully we can be a good model for other communities, getting out ahead of this and setting things appropriately. So, new business item number 2, we need to set a public hearing for the fiscal year 25-26 budget amendment, as well as the fiscal year 26-27 village and DDA budgets and proposed millage rates. So, okay. Recommend that we set a public hearing for fiscal year 25-26 budget amendment, fiscal year 26-27 village and DDA budgets, and proposed millage rates. What date?
March 23rd.
March 23rd,
So moved.
2026.
Second.
Roll call.
McEwen,
Yes.
Schoenberg,
Yes.
Stanfield,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Schulte.
Yes. Okay. Item number 3 is the Michigan Rural Water Conference, March 17th to 20th, for Mr. Ryan Jones. It's just you're requesting attendance?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Did you put information in here about that or no?
No, there's really no information about it. I sent Jessica the registration fee and the hotel fee. I was looking it up right now to see if I had the number here. It is $1,162. That's early bird registration and the hotel.
You want to use the village pickup for travel?
I could just take mine, it's just in Mount Pleasant. I didn't take it last year either. That way it's here for the guys.
Any questions from the council for Ryan on what Michigan Rural Water is or what this?
No.
Okay. I recommend that we approve Ryan to attend the Michigan Rural Water Conference on March 17th to 20th in Mount Pleasant, including the hotel early bird registration costs not to exceed $1,162 in reimbursement for meal allowance when not provided in accordance with the village handbook.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
McEwen,
Yes.
Schoenberg,
Yes.
Stanfield,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Schulte.
Yes. Okay, chugging along to MML liability and property pool renewal. Jessica, do you mind please refreshing the council and myself what this is?
Yeah, so this is actually the village's insurance, that covers, let me get it off. So some of the things, if they go up, the annual premium is gonna be $24,659. And compared to last year, it was $22,371, an increase of $2,288. The following exposure rate coverage limit changes are reflected in the renewal quote. You can get a little breakdown. $82 Michigan catastrophic claims assessment per vehicle. A slight increase in property and liability rates. Loss ratio of 269% due to closed embezzlement fees for $99,207 in the open employment claim. $6,676 increased payroll. $1,194,494 total increase to property value for an underwriting inflation guard. And new member added, bid location. So it's just the yearly increase, and then they're gonna send a dividend check of $740.
I expected our rates to go up since we've used it, but it's not as bad as I would have thought. Any questions or discussion about the liability and property pool?
No.
Nope.
I recommend that we approve the 2026, 2027 MML liability and property pool renewal for $24,659.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
McEwen,
Yes.
Schoenberg,
Yes.
Stanfield,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Schultz.
Yes. All right. Last item of new business. This is for Jessica to attend the MMTA Advanced Institute on May 11th through the 13th. Jessica, do you want to just briefly mention what this is, the MMTA?
So another class for the Treasurers Association. A lot of the training sessions they're gonna be having, cybersecurity and fraud, walking through the RFP process, special assessments, while auditors wish treasurers new chart of accounts management, consolidating bank accounts, legislative updates and impact, transformational and housing brownfields, AI update, progress related, and there's a lot more they do. These are classes that you attend after the basic classes, so you have to continue in education.
Any questions on MMTA?
No.
Recommend that we approve Jessica to attend the MMTA Advanced Institute, May 11th through the 13th, in Midland, Michigan, including hotel and registration, not to exceed $842, and reimbursement for mileage and meal allowance when not provided, in accordance with the personnel handbook.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
McEwen,
Yes.
Schoenberg,
Yes.
Stanfield,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Schultz.
Yes. Okay. Brings us to the end of new business, and we'll open up for our second round of public comment at 7:12. Any public comment? Seeing none, so we will close public comments. I have no additional comments, so that brings us to council comment.
I got a couple of things. We're talking about new ordinances. We're talking about ordinances. Why are we not enforcing the ordinances we already have? We don't do anything about the sidewalks that aren't shoveled. Sidewalk all the way up to Dollar General was plugged, people walking through 8 inches of snow. My wife and I walked the dog tonight, had to walk through ice and slush and snow all over this village, and nothing's being done about it. There's junk, vehicles and trash in yards that have been sitting in the same spot for 5 years. We're not doing anything about it. So to talk about ordinances is a waste of everybody's time if we're not going to start enforcing some of this. The safety stairs or the emergency exit stairs on the back of the doctor's office, still nothing up there from the ones that got rotted off. The door's still boarded up from the inside. If we're gonna talk about it, we gotta start doing it.
I fully agree, and to your point about the snow on the sidewalks, I had a discussion with both Ryan and Jessica. That is technically something that is in our ordinance, which would mean falls on Jim to enforce. But since he's only here 1 day a week, the DPW is in process of collecting the addresses which are in violation. We'll send notices to them from the village offices, and if they're not in compliance within 7 days, then we will turn over those to Jim for further enforcement. So it's a slow, painful process, but it's the process we have.
Well, we're gonna miss the window now. Everything's gonna be melted by the time we've done anything about it. I mean, it's been this way all winter. It's the same addresses, it's the same spots. It's just been ongoing, and we have to start, if we're gonna talk about it, we gotta start doing something about it. That's all there is to it.
I agree, and I think when it comes to the snow, past 5 or 7 years, we've been lucky that there hasn't been that much. And I think this is highlighting maybe some pain points, which are, it's very similar to grass, which is a lot of times following our processes, the the grass is addressed before, a notice is, it can, delivered.
But
Right.
it's the same people that are doing the grass violations, that are doing the snow violations.
Possibly, but I think this is something maybe we can talk about with Chris and McKenna, is how do we better serve the community in
Yes.
terms of ordinance enforcement?
Yes, and actually that's acknowledged that there's an inefficiency, with generally being here once a week, and that actually there probably could be more of a split between the sort of rapid reaction code enforcement, like this grass is too long, the sidewalk's not shoveled. And this could tie to your civil infractions ordinance that you're talking about discussing, because you're not about big data center enforcement, but you could also use that ordinance to more easily enforce things like sidewalks, which is to say, sidewalk's not plowed, $50 fine. There's not a warning, and maybe you want to do warnings, but they'd be in their rights to say, the first time someone at DPW notices there's an unplowed sidewalk, they just, like a parking ticket, right on your door. You could do that. It doesn't make sense, let's put it this way, it doesn't make sense for McKenna to be in charge of that for you. We can't staff that at the level you need staffing. It makes more sense for you guys to deputize the DPW for that sort of thing, and then create a fine schedule where they can do it like parking tickets. I think that our role is better served on the big picture code enforcement that is going to take involvement from legal, that is going to take trips to court, that is going to have a lawyer on the other side, things of that nature. We're prepared to continue helping with that, but it does feel like the smaller day-to-day may be better taken in-house to the village. And we have, and I just sent it over to Sam and Jessica today, so you guys haven't seen it. But we have a proposal for your next budget year to change the way that we provide and bill for services. And one of the changes would be to take that piece off our plate and use the resources that, hopefully actually to reduce the cost to you guys overall, but basically to shift those resources to things that are more efficiently done by McKenna than that particular code enforcement, because you're right, it's not getting done effectively right now.
So it's definitely hurt, Mike.
Okay. The only other thing I had is I think maybe it would be a good idea for all of us or some of us to maybe go to the Leroy Township meeting to hear what's going on out there and what their thoughts are about this data stuff. And so we can all be in the same loop.
Next Wednesday night at 7 PM over at the Township Hall.
Do they usually on Wednesdays?
Yes, they meet quarterly on the third Wednesday of the month.
Because of the planning commission.
Yes.
I was thinking of the regular township.
Yeah, the
board.
Township Board is like first Tuesdays or something like that, first Thursday.
Yeah.
Our planning commission is the third Thursday of February, May, August, and November, something like that, if, unless there's an application or something that they need to address, otherwise.
Yeah, I think it's open to the public, so I think it's a great idea. Any other comments from the council? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
I will make motion to adjourn at 7:17 PM.
I second.
Seconded, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you, everybody, for coming.